tread your eyes. On the train, eyes in line, bring on!
Discover the top 6 bands that Jim Morrison, the iconic frontman of The Doors. People may have been mesmerized by Jim Morrison's dark stage presence and brooding lyrics as a rock poet. Charisma, she wore leather. But inside she was one of the harshest music critics around. During his meteoric rise and tragic fall, Morrison never hesitated to speak out against what he thought was fake music. He is said to have told a reporter from Craw Daddy magazine that the only thing that is true is music. Everything else is a lie. No one in the music business was safe from Morrison's rude criticism, from pop stars to fellow rock pioneers. His fights with musicians weren't just small grudges. They came from a self-proclaimed shaman who saw rock music not as entertainment but as a revolution. Today, we're listing the 6 bands that made the Lizard King say the meanest things about them. Morrison thought that certain bands didn't deserve the cultural power they had. These bands caused fights between generations and artistic differences that showed Morrison's rigid ideas about what rock music should be. The Animals. Morrison's The Monkees' loathing for television's man-made answer to the Beatles is one of his strongest attacks on commercialized rock music. It is said that the fight started in 1967, when both The Doors and the Monkees were on top of the charts. At a party in Los Angeles, Morrison is said to have cornered Monkees drummer Mickey Dolenz and given him a scathing review. "You're not musicians. You're just actors pretending to be musicians while real artists struggle to get noticed." Dolenz tried to defend their music, and Morrison is said to have laughed and said, "The day corporate America can make authentic art is the day I'll cut my hair and join the system." People's inability to tell the difference between manufactured pop and what Morrison saw as real artistic expression made him very angry. Morrison is said to have told keyboardist Ray Manzarek that he saw the Monkees on the cover of Rolling Stone. "This is why the spiritual life of America is dying. They can't tell the difference between reality and TV when it comes to plastic and flesh." When both bands played on the same bill at a 1967 concert, things got worse. A roadie who worked the show said that Morrison wouldn't acknowledge the Monkees backstage, only calling them the cartoon band. Later, a radio DJ asked Morrison about the Monkees' popularity, and he allegedly said, "Popular? So is fast food. Both will make you sick if you eat too much of them." Morrison was still not impressed when the Monkees started writing their own material and competing for creative control. "Giving actors instruments doesn't make them musicians," he reportedly told an interviewer. "It makes them props in a complicated marketing scheme." The Beach Boys. The Boys from the Beach. Morrison's dislike of the Beach Boys summed up the conflict between his dark poetic view of America and the sunny California mythology that Brian Wilson and his band had created. There was a real rivalry between them when both bands came out of Los Angeles with very different sounds and messages. At an industry party in 1966, Morrison is said to have said that the Beach Boys' harmonies were just suburban lullabies for people who didn't have any feelings. A witness said that when someone brought up the Beach Boys' complicated arrangements, Morrison replied, "Complexity without substance is just noise. They wrote the music for a California that doesn't exist except in White Picket's dreams." Morrison seemed to be especially angry about the Beach Boys' commercial appeal. The Doors had trouble getting their darker songs played on the radio at first after Light My Fire was edited against the band's wishes. Morrison is said to have told a reporter off the record, "The Beach Boys sing about surfing and cars and get embraced by America. We sing about the darkness below the surface, but they don't want us to say it. That says it all about how hypocritical this culture is." The philosophical gap grew even as both bands' music changed. When Pet Sounds was praised as a masterpiece, Morrison is said to have told Doors producer Paul Rothchild, "New production techniques can't make up for lyrics that sound like they belong in a teenager's diary. I want to wake people up, and they want to help them sleep better." When Morrison met Wilson by chance at Sunset Sound Studios, witnesses said he didn't seem to be affected by Wilson's musical innovations. Later, he told his bandmates, "Technical brilliance without a message is just expensive waste of time and money. America doesn't need any more pretty things to look at. It needs the truth, no matter how bad it is." The Beatles. Morrison's complicated relationship with the Beatles shows how he felt about their rise from pop stars to cultural revolutionaries in the Beatles. In the early days of The Doors, Morrison is said to have thought that the Beatles' first album was just bubblegum poetry with clever hooks. Robbie Kager, Doors guitarist, said that after hearing "I Want to Hold Your Hand," Morrison laughed and said, "This is what you call rebellion? Holding hands. The real revolution won't be so nice." The situation changed a bit when the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Morrison liked the idea behind it, but not how it was put together. Morrison is said to have told engineer Bruce Botnick during a recording session soon after the album came out, "They're finally trying to say something, but they're wrapping the message in so much whimsy that it loses its power. Revolution isn't a party with costumes." Morrison was very rude to the Beatles when they started practicing transcendental meditation. When a reporter from Circus magazine saw pictures of the band in India with the Maharishi, Morrison is said to have said, "Spiritual tourism for the privileged. They've switched from one way to escape to another. Real enlightenment comes from facing the darkness, not chanting it away." What seemed to bother Morrison the most was how much everyone loved the Beatles. After the John Lennon, "more popular than Jesus," controversy, Morrison is said to have told friends, "At least he admitted the ridiculousness of their worship. But owning up to your part in the sickness doesn't make it go away." Even with these problems, Morrison was said to have admired the Beatles' later work, especially how willing they were to try new sounds. He told a radio host in 1970, "They're finally catching up to where the rest of us started. Maybe they'll make something really dangerous in 5 years." The Jefferson Plane. Even though Morrison and Jefferson Airplane were both into psychedelic rock, his dislike of the band shows that he thought their revolutionary rhetoric lacked substance. It is said that the fight started at the 1967 Human Bin in San Francisco, where both bands played. A person who saw the Jefferson Airplane set says that Morrison told Doors organist Ray Manzarek, "They're playing at Revolution like it's a costume they can take off after the show. True revolution isn't a fashion statement, it's a death sentence you willingly accept." Morrison was especially angry about the band's political messages, which he thought were too shallow. He is said to have told a reporter from Craw Daddy about the Volunteers after hearing them. "It's not revolution to sing about it from the safety of a record deal. It's capitalism in a chevron t-shirt. If real freedom burned down their recording studio, these people wouldn't know what it was." The philosophical differences reached a peak at a festival in 1968 where both bands were playing. According to reports, Grace Slick tried to talk to Morrison about how music can change people's minds. A stagehand who heard the conversation said that Morrison laughed and said, "Consciousness doesn't need changing. It needs to be stripped naked and forced to face itself without the psychedelic light show. Your music is just another thing that takes my mind off of the void." What seemed to bother Morrison the most was how Jefferson Airplanes embraced the peace and love ethos of the San Francisco scene. When a reporter compared the two bands, Morrison is said to have said, "They're selling flowers and sunshine. It's true that those flowers grow from graves and that sunshine burns. Only one of us is telling the truth about people." The Deadheads. Morrison's dislike of the Grateful Dead is one of the biggest philosophical gaps in rock music. Morrison takes a confrontational view of the audience experience, while the Dead creates a community-like atmosphere. The rivalry is said to have started when both bands played at the Fillmore in 1967. After seeing the Dead play an extended improvisational set, Morrison is said to have told Doors manager Bill Siddons, "That's not music. That's musical masturbation. Having so much fun that they forgot there are people watching. Art without limits isn't art, it's just a treat." One thing that really annoyed Morrison was how the Dead treated psychedelics. It is said that after both bands played at a benefit concert, Morrison sat down with Jerry Garcia backstage and told him, "You're using music to comfort people when you should be using it to wake them up. People who hear you leave feeling calm. Mine should be left alone." The difference in how they performed brought out their main differences. The Dead created a sense of community with their audience, but Morrison often made his crowds angry. A reporter pointed out this difference, and Morrison is said to have said, "The Dead are serving musical comfort food. I'm serving a mirror that shows people what they're afraid to see. One method gets people to like you. The other makes consciousness possible." Rolling Stone's Led Zeppelin. Morrison's alleged dislike for the rising stars of Led Zeppelin shows how complicated his feelings are about how rock has changed and about his own legacy. The Doors and Led Zeppelin were both in the same cosmic moment in rock history at the same time. However, Morrison was said to have thought that the younger band was making the mystical elements that he had helped to create more mainstream. Morrison is said to have told Doors producer Paul Rothchild, "They've taken the mysticism we brought to rock and turned it into a carnival act. The difference is intent. I'm trying to break through to the other side. They're trying to break through to the bank." Morrison said that Robert Plant's singing and stage presence were the worst things about him. As Zeppelin played at a party, Morrison is said to have told a group of friends, "He's borrowing my leather pants and my interest in the occult, but not my poetry or purpose." Shamanism's role is to entertain, not to change people. The philosophical split got worse as Led Zeppelin became more and more popular. A reporter from Cream magazine asked Morrison about the band's meteoric rise, and he is said to have said, "Success in America is often inversely proportional to substance. They're giving people the impression of depth without asking them to go deep into the darkness. It's mysticism for those who are scared of what they might find if they go through the veil." The fights weren't just over dislike of each other. They showed deep disagreements about what music is for in society. Morrison always pushed music as a way to spread dangerous truths instead of safe illusions. He criticized groups like the Monkees for making up their origin stories, the Beach Boys for cleaning up their California mythology, and Led Zeppelin for making money off of mysticism. Even though Morrison has been dead for more than 50 years, his fights with other people have become as much a part of his mythology as his poetry. A tribute to an artist who wouldn't separate his music from his goal of shattering America's false beliefs. If you liked this look at the Lizard King's most famous musical rivalries, click the like button. Sign up for more in-depth looks into rock history, and let us know what you think in the comments. Are Morrison's criticisms of his contemporaries fair, or was he being too harsh? Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories.